Foundation, because without the earth, nothing else makes any sense. There's nothing else. Everything else comes off that. So that's what we put as our primary directive in permaculture. We're always looking at how can we care for that? How can we be regenerative rather than destructive? How can we be harmonizing with the natural landscape rather than just abusing it for resources? So we come from a model right now where we don't see that. In the current industrial agricultural model across the board in many different things, we don't necessarily do that at all. It's not foundational to our thinking. We're in a profit-driven kind of society where what we get is the driving force that we're going to throw in a little bit of a loop. I didn't expect it to come out. Where we're just taking for a profit. We're not concerned about putting back at this point in time, and we're now at our level, at our generation, we're now starting to see the effects of that. We're starting to see the effects of actually not a very long period of time in history where we've been interacting in this way. I think that prior generations didn't necessarily, we have evidence that a lot of indigenous communities do actually have this as a directive. The Aboriginal in Australia are very much driven by this kind of idea. There's all the talk from American Indians or Native Americans who talk about 7 generations into the future, caring for the land, 7 generations. So there are some cultures that definitely have this principle, this ethical underpinning to the way they use the land as a directive. But I think that a lot of history probably that wasn't the case. Not because we didn't care, it just wasn't a thought. The way that humans would have interacted with the landscape did not have the capacity for such a detrimental effect that we have now. It's being the advent of our technology, it's being the increase in population that is a result of the advent of our technology, it's being our ability to use and move water and deal with sewerage and sanitation, everything that's allowed our population to expand. It's our economic system and our government systems that have come into place that have allowed people, for this disparity in wealth, that have allowed people to consider themselves as highly independent. So we can be an independent being, I can get my profit, my stuff, my everything, I can accumulate great wealth, I can have a level of life, comfort, success, status, power that other people can't have based on my ability to turn resources into profit in a totally fantastical exchange. I say fantastical because it's like quite fantasy, the way that we deal with money and the way that we exchange and value resources is just totally fictional. It's not based on anything relevant whatsoever. It's totally man-made, totally fictional, created thing. So we end up in this dilemma that we have right now. But when we start to return back down to care of the earth and put that as our principle, we actually say that's the most important thing that we can do. We now have something to do on hold. And that leads us into our second major ethic in permaculture, which is care of people. People care. So you can see how this one obviously builds on care of the earth. If there's no earth taken care of, because who cares about people? We're not going to live it. So care of people is starting to look towards taking care of our needs in terms of our health, our psychological health, and just our comfort and quality of living. So these are ethical ideals, that we're striving for, and that seeing the full impact, like we're only ever going to be able to see at this point in time very small incremental, very localized expressions of these ethical principles. We're only going to see this kind of people caring a localized environment that we're able to create ourselves. We're not necessarily going to be able to throw that out. Although some governments, I know that in Scandinavian countries, a lot of governments are starting to move towards taking on this kind of ethic. When we speak about going towards organic, and when I've heard people, I think it's in Norway, or it's one of those countries where they're starting to provide a base living wage for everyone. Everyone has
Unconditional income.
unconditional income. Everyone has a base living wage. Everyone is guaranteed food and shelter. In Denmark. Yeah, everyone is guaranteed food and shelter. We're starting to get to these kind of levels. Everyone is guaranteed food and shelter. Everyone is guaranteed medicine, treatment for medicine. Everyone is guaranteed, the ability to have psychological well-being. We're starting to move towards care of people. And when we're working in our localized projects, whatever the scale we're at, this is going to be of utmost importance. How comfortable we're going to be with people is of importance, especially coming after this. So this is the one we take care of first. We need to make sure that we're doing the right thing, the right finance. Otherwise, we're going to have the finance piece moving on, and we're not going to be able to sustain ourselves indefinitely, and then we start taking care of ourselves after that. And the third ethical principle is, there's been two iterations of it. One is called fair share, and the other one that I like more, the idea is about return of surplus. So return of surplus is when we start to put all these permaculture principles and design strategies into place, and we're coming from these ethical principles, we begin to approach abundance. That's something that happens very real. And we see, like as Jeff was speaking about before, how productive you can be over a metre squared. We actually start to discover how little land we need at an individual level to provide what we need. It's actually way smaller than we think. And so there's, and I've been trapped to it as well. We're in the mentality of bigger is better. And we're always thinking, I want the big bit of land. I want the big thing. We actually don't really need very much land at all. When we take a big bit of land, it's like Zaytuna Farm where I'm at now. We're on 66 acres, around 22 hectares. And we have between 14 to 20 people there full time. And we manage, in terms of a level of intensity, like it actually has like attention on us. Maybe 1/8 of the farm is actually any kind of serious management. If we extend into our pasture and the way we range the animals, we extend that a little bit more. But the vast majority of that farm is actually largely just sitting there as potential. We haven't got to it yet. And on that amount of land, we're pretty much, I'd say we're approaching, when we've got things right, we approach probably around 70 to 80% supplying all our needs with surplus. So we actually get to a point where our visuals,
I was going to add, you're also feeding a lot of people coming in.
Exactly.
Besides that, just what I saw.
So this is where we start getting into
the beyond this.
Yeah, so when we have everything getting right and everything's smooth, there have been hiccups along the way, and this is this people stuff that we were talking about before that have created a few little hiccups, and those ripples affect our productivity. And the interesting thing that I've learned about when we work is there's this real time delay. So productivity, a hiccup can happen, and 4 months later productivity drops. It's 4 months later that effect happens. It's like a couple of weeks where we didn't get crops in the ground at the right time, we missed the season, something happened, that delay happens a lot later, and we're like, oh, what's happening here? And we trace it back to an event that we had, several months beforehand. So we had a couple of events where people hiccups, big dramas that occurred, and they caused that hiccup. So when everything's operating smoothly, we start to reach a level of surplus quite quickly, where we're able to bring in 30 odd extra people for 2 weeks at a time for PDC and provide, again, the majority of their food. I mean, we do buy in grain, we don't currently grow any grain, we do buy in cooking oil. And these are things, when we start looking into grain production, we start looking into oils, these are things where we start to have to build even bigger infrastructure. Starting to look at people who are specialising in creating oil, people who are specialising in growing chemicals. So you're expanding. We're looking towards that. We're looking towards moving into a grain crop at this point in time. But so what happens is, very quickly you end up with surplus. Like I've been thinking on that land, if we were to turn all the areas that are available into productivity, so some of them are never going to be available for productivity, they're left as wildlife corridors, they're left for nature to have its own place. So there's quite large areas of that. Particular wildlife corridor, we definitely want access to the creek, and that's something we'll talk a lot more about in zoning when we go into membership design. That you want some areas of wildlife. So if we were to take the areas available of productivity into full productivity, I reckon that size land, you're probably looking at sustaining 40 to 50 people indefinitely, and probably with surplus. So when we look at return of surplus, we're looking at, once we have our needs met, we're able to share further. We're able to actually give out. So sometimes when we have surplus of vegetables, we take it to a local market and we give them out for free, or we sell them for a really cheap price. We have enough. We have enough to keep going. We're not really on a profit model at this point in time. Maybe we will a little bit, but again, the amount of input to the possible output allows us to actually be quite cheap if we want to. So return of surplus is in terms of our resources as well, once we've met the needs of the system we're in. So the system that we're in, if we're producing food, if we're taking food out, there is something that's coming out. And this is something that modern agriculture doesn't really fully understand, or they try and offset with massive amounts of chemicals they're bringing in. But when we're taking things out of the land, something needs to go back in. And it may not, we're able to take out slightly more than we put back in because of, thank you, sunlight and air. We have sunlight and air and water that are free resources that come in and they convert into carbon. They convert it through carbon pathways that are made into vegetation, and we have plants that are now created. But some of that needs to go back into the soil. Actually, quite a lot of it. And if we have that turned back into the soil, constantly we're meeting the demands of our soil and our soil life, which is something we learn a lot more about in this course, into soil life, as a very, very important driver of the system. There is something that's left, especially if we're recycling our own waste into the system. There is a little bit over the top that starts doing that. And so this is the surplus, and so this is what we return. Part of that returns to a landscape, part of that returns to potentially our great community. And we're able to return surplus can also be in terms of information. So when you learn this, and you're able to teach others, you're able to do that in return surplus. Jeff's able to take on us as interns as a surplus in terms of information, time, and resources. He has the land that's available for us to come and learn. This is another example of this effort. The other version of that is fair share. So again, it's this idea of sharing equally, of actually being able to contribute across the board. Because we want this, where I believe that everyone is here, everyone's drawn to this idea of permaculture because we envision the possibility of living in a world where a lot of these real chronic degenerative diseases are actually not here anymore because they're created diseases. They're created by lifestyle issues. They're not necessarily created by nature. Where we actually have freedom to enjoy a creative livelihood. We're able to do the things that we love doing out in nature rather than forced into a career to make a fantastical fantasy income to basically survive and live. So I think we're drawn towards the idea of living a more harmonious lifestyle, a lifestyle where we're not time poor anymore, where we actually start becoming time rich again. We have health, we have well-being, we have community, and so we want to return the possibilities to create that out to everyone. And that's what you're all here. And then after learning this course, you're able to go on and teach this to other people. You're able to go on and spread this knowledge, participate in projects, and allow this to become more bigger, bigger than us. And we need each other. This is something that you can't actually do on your own, at least not on a global level. And even on a localized scale, it's very difficult to do everything, right, Josh? If you want to do everything, if you want to start adding tool making and making your own clothes and all your buildings and all of that stuff into the mix, it's like you need. Yeah. Lunchtime?
Lunchtime, it's When you hear that call to prayer, we're ready to go. 1, 2, 3.